Britt Allcroft was an English writer, producer, director and voice actress, best known for creating the beloved children's television series Thomas the Tank Engine. To discuss the legacy of the programme, we have producer and director of An Unlikely Fandom, the impact of Thomas the Tank Engine, Brennan Carty, who spoke to me about the secrets of the series' success.
You know, you've got a lot of great children's shows out there. You've got Pingu, you've got Fireman Sam, you've got Tugs, like all these things. But Thomas is different because it's very tangible. It's something that's real. The model trains themselves are these actual, it's not stop motion, it's live action animation in a sense. And it's just so colorful, and it feels like a world you could just step into if you just walked into your TV screen. It's unlike anything else I've ever seen.
And did you have a favourite in terms of the engines? I know there was Thomas, and then there was James, Henry, Gordon, Edward, Toby, and Percy, and the Fat Controller.
I am very partial to James. He is my favorite character.
And it's fair to say that some fans have almost kind of obsessed with the series well into adulthood. I don't want to say I'm one of them, but near enough.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things is that I've never seen a show like this where a lot of fans just simply don't grow out of it. You know, other shows you sort of kind of drop off, 4 or 5 maybe. But speaking personally and knowing all these people, it's infectious. It sticks with you almost like a disease in a sense, but it's incredible, the staying power of the original television show. It's beautiful.
And Brennan, I mean, I'd never met Britt, and obviously researching last night about this story, I finally saw a picture of her. I mean, you met her many times. I mean, what was she like as a person?
The best way I can describe her is you could tell she was still very in touch with her inner child. And I think that's what makes her so unique compared to anyone else that I've met from like the Thomas crew. Meeting her, you could see that vibrancy when she started talking about, working on the original show, working with people like David Mitton, Ringo Starr, Michael Angelis. You could tell she actually really cared. And that's something that you don't really find as much these days. She cared about the quality. She wanted the kids to be entertained and feel safe. And especially when I met her in her twilight years, she was certainly older, but that energy was still there. And she was still just the kindest person, you could ever meet. And she gave me so much time. And, as a lifelong Thomas fan, it's basically meeting your hero. And I'm so grateful.
That's incredible. And I often wonder when people, because the show was so successful, I mean, it generated millions for the creators. And I often wonder how a person is once they become that successful. Still humble, was she?
Yeah, she was relatively humble. I mean, when she agreed to do the interview, there weren't any sort of weird terms about giving her XYZ amount of money or like, you need to have this in the green room for me or something akin to that. It was just, she said, just tell me where to go. And I'll show up and I'll give you my time and we'll go from there.
And tell us a bit about the documentary then. Why did you decide to make this documentary, the documentary An Unlikely Fandom, the impact of Thomas the Tank Engine? I mean, firstly, how did you get the commission? I mean, there was an interest. You got it. It happened. When did that all start?
Yeah, so it started back in 2019. I was graduating college and my final semester, I was doing sort of this independent study with my professor who happened to be a documentary filmmaker. And he said, tell you what, find something that you care about, make a doc about it, and I'll pass you, and then you can graduate. I thought long and hard about it, and a lot of people want to do these socio-political things, and that's great. I think those are wonderful, but I wanted to do something that I knew I loved and cared about. And I was scrolling on Twitter one night, and I'm like, wait a minute. These are a bunch of Thomas fans that are adults. Like that's interesting. That's a story that I think people would love to hear.
Incredible. And the family did put a statement out yesterday and says the family is currently mourning the loss and asks their privacy be respected at this time. And it goes on to say that she brought so much joy and happiness to people everywhere during her time on Earth. Over the years of knowing Britt, we developed a close connection. It was truly a privilege to have her as both a mentor and friend. I mean, so many people loved her in terms of what she created and brought to our screens. And Thomas the Tank Engine was first broadcast in the States in 1989.
Yeah, that was something I don't think she quite realized. We brought her to a screening of our film in New York City last year, November 27th, 2023. And when she walked out on stage, it was like John, a Beatle had come out on stage. Like it was such a huge deal for the fans there, myself, but even her, she got choked up and teary-eyed,
Really?
finally sort of getting this recognition that I think was long overdue.
She just wasn't expecting it, I guess. And when you break America as a British filmmaker or as a producer, when your series is then taken to the States and globally, worldwide, I mean, you've kind of made it. It transcends.
Yeah, in America, it's tough to break that market, and of course, she had to change things, get Alec Baldwin, like all these like American terms were changed, but it still worked. It still worked, and she kept driving this brand, not only in America but just all around the world. And I can't think of anyone else who would just keep that drive going. I mean, she was a woman in this mostly male-dominated field, and she pioneered it.
And has this documentary helped launch your career now as a documentary filmmaker?
Yeah, I didn't want to do documentaries before I made this, but now I'm really interested in them, having made one. And, we're doing a festival run right now. We've had a bunch of people sort of reach out and say, oh, when can I see it? And a bunch, like even Thomas crew members that were not involved in the doc have reached out and said, hey, I love the fact that you made this, and please let me see it as soon as possible.
And Brennan, what was it about the fans you discovered in the documentary? I mean, were you interviewing them? Give us a flavour of that. Are there conventions for Thomas the Tank Engine? How did you film the fans? Are they at their homes?
Yeah, a lot of them, we came to their homes because they were also close friends of mine already. So it was very easy to say, let me come into your home and film you. What's weird about that? There's also a convention that happens every year in good old New Jersey, America, where a bunch of Thomas fans meet up and run like double O model trains, Hornby, Bachman. And that's where we got a lot of our footage of like fans like in their element. And it made for some stunning B-roll.
And just lastly then, I mean, so I guess you're a Thomas the Tank Engine fan. Are there any other kind of children's TV programs you grew up with or that you're into? I know you mentioned Pingu earlier. So will you be making another documentary on another children's TV popular series?
Listen, the only other thing I would want to make a documentary about is the show Tugs, which was from Thomas the Tank Engine's crew. I find that one fascinating.
You have to enlighten us. Tugs, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so the director of Thomas went off and made his own little spinoff between the first and second seasons of Thomas. It's Tugboats with Faces. It was on, I think it aired on CITV in 88 and 89. Only aired once, released on video, became obscure. But it's fascinating.
And I guess in terms of the doc, when's it going to be released?
So right now we are looking for distribution. We have a few things, sort of up our sleeve, and don't want to jinx myself, but hopefully you will be able to see it during Thomas's 80th anniversary, God willing.
And where were you, Brennan, when you heard that Britt had died? Were you shocked, saddened?
Yeah, I was at home. I was working from home, and I got a call from Britt's lifelong friend, Rick Sigelkow, who also worked on Thomas in the U.S., and he very gently said, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about. And, unfortunately, Britt passed away last week. And I can't lie. I was sobbing on the phone with him because, this is like losing like your grandmother in a sense. That's what she felt like to me. It wasn't just like a colleague. To me, it was very personal. And I'm 24 hours out from having heard the news, and it's still very shocking, but it's great seeing fans kind of pour out and say like how much they loved her.
Incredible. Well, thanks for speaking to us. That's Brennan Carty, of the director and producer of An Unlikely Fandom, The Impact of Thomas the Tank Engine.